Hello, everybody. Professor Vio, thank you very much for the introduction and the possibility to present here today. As you already mentioned, the topic of our presentation today is the port area video surveillance in the context of port resilience. So I will start with contextualizing the concept of resilience. Since the disruptions and unexpected turbulences characterize our everyday lives. In recent decades, we have faced numerous challenges and crises such as earthquakes, terrorist attacks, economic crisis, of course, COVID-19, which has impacted many aspects of our lives. According to the last World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report, the threats that are most likely to occur include natural disasters and extreme weather, natural resource crisis, collapse of public infrastructure and services, erosion of social cohesion, interstate conflict and state collapse, the collapse of a systematically important supply chain, widespread cybercrime, and unfortunately, many others. So to provide a broad answer to all those threats, not only to climate change, but also to socio-economic and political uncertainties, authorities worldwide place resilience at the heart of their policy-making activity. Mainly in the last decade, the concept of resilience has firmly established itself in practical debates. Just to point out that, for example, Time magazine declared resilience the buzzword of 2013. Regarding the global developmental strategic documents, resilience is one of the top priorities of the Sustainable Development Agenda for risk-related issues. So already mentioned the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development of 2015 sets out 17 sustainable development goals, just to name a few. For example, goal number 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, seeks to build resilient infrastructure, promote sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Then goal 11 is about making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, sustainable, but also resilient. Very famous one is goal number 13, climate action, which is about taking urgent action to combat climate change and all its impacts. And one of the targets of this goal is to strengthen resilience and adaptive capacity to climate-related hazards and natural disasters. Regarding definition and meaning of resilience, while the concept has been developed and used with very different understandings and meanings for over 40 years within different disciplines, such as ecology and biology in the beginning, but in the most recent years, engineering, especially urban studies, security and risk management, economy, and others. It has also served as a universal answer to today's diverse but also multi-dimensional global challenges. Although an increasing number of disciplines have adopted the concept of resilience, there is still a lack of cross-disciplinary or interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary approaches. So given the high complex character of the global crisis, it cannot be adequately addressed with the knowledge of a single scientific discipline. So an intra and transdisciplinary conceptions are becoming increasingly important. So in this sense, our presentation today is a kind of micro contribution to strengthening the interdisciplinary approach to the analysis of the concept of resilience, given that I will present its development aspects and Professor Mudrić will present practical applicability of resilience from an interdisciplinary perspective. So the meaning of resilience is really beyond the simple sum of numerous disciplinary approaches, and it really requires integration of its various dimensions, individual, societal, economic, environmental, political, and infrastructural, of course. In other words, it requires holistic approach. According to one of the relevant authors from this field, Folke, resilience is about having the capacity to continue to learn, self-organize, and develop in dynamic environments faced with true uncertainty and unexpected, like steering a vessel in the turbulent waters. According to OECD, it is about ability to absorb, recover, and transform, and at the same time to address the root causes of crisis and strengthening the capacities and resources of system in order to cope with the disruptions. So most working definitions of resilience involve a process that begins before hazardous impact, but also includes this temporal periods during and after the impact. The mentioned aspects can be categorized into three groups: before the crisis, during the crisis, and after the crisis. So the first one is about anticipation, observation, and preparation. It is also about early identification of dangers and effective prevention of crisis by reducing risk factors or strengthening corresponding protective factors. The second one is about protection from negative effects of adversity, with the objective to remain fully functional while reacting quickly and effectively to challenges. And the third one is about quick recovery and learning from the past events. So given the complex structure of resilience, a significant focus must be placed on the systematic operationalization of resilience. As earlier mentioned, policymakers must take ownership of resilience and translated it into practical forms for implementation. Ongoing attacks or risk or crisis require immediate response and thus real-time decision making. So resilience must transition from concepts and definitions to an operational paradigm for system management, especially under emergent and future threats. Also, there is a need to understand and define the full potential for operationalizing resilience, which is beyond simple disaster risk reduction and adaptation. Still, systematic operationalization of resilience through a systematic framework generates co-benefit by integrating with mitigation and ultimately with innovation and development. Transformation in modes of governance must accompany the objective of resilience and vice versa. To strengthen actually people's and systems resilience, to improve society's overall well-being, also reach the most vulnerable, and to ensure the fulfillment of those 17 sustainable development goals by 2030, integrated and effective approaches are needed. More specifically, integrated governance is needed, which refers to the horizontal integration of sectoral policies and different actors involved. It also refers to vertical integration of different levels of governance: local, regional, national, supranational, or global. And it also refers to integration beyond administrative boundaries. Also, the integrated governance approach enables the management structure to operationalize resilience precisely by relying on a holistic approach that facilitates finding solutions for potential risks while considering development's economic, social, and environmental aspects. So the integrated governance approach is actually based on the network management's flexibility and cooperation characteristics. So it is really a prerequisite to applying the resilience concept. Also, an indispensable element of the implementation process is the cooperation of formal and informal or state or non-state informal actors and citizen participation. As critical infrastructure for international trade and local economies, ports are vulnerable to many risks, such as sea level rise, erosion, storm surge, flooding, collapse of port infrastructure and services, cyber attacks, and many others. So, as stated, resilience is the capability to anticipate, prepare for, respond to, and recover from significant multi-hazard threats affecting and disrupting maritime networks. In the face of numerous threats and risks, port decision makers are responsible for managing risks for diverse stakeholders, namely public policy makers, internal stakeholders, community groups, market players, but they're also responsible for enhancing port resilience. So participation of diverse stakeholders in policy making through the lens of integrated approach is very, very demanding and complex challenge, given that port management is regularly confronted with many stakeholders. So achieving a balance between interests of all stakeholders is becoming a critical job for port managers. Later examples of tools for operationalizing the resilience concept will show how to target the interests of many stakeholders. So resilience tests the capacity of a port in three different manners: absorptive capacity, restorative capacity, and adaptive capacity. So the first one is the ability of a port or terminal to absorb a disruption while maintaining a level of service. Restorative capacity is the ability of a port to recover from a specific disruption to a level of service similar to or even above a baseline. And the third one, adaptive capacity, is the ability of a port to change its operations and even its management, either as anticipation or a reaction to a disruption. As stated, there is a requirement for immediate response and real-time decision-making. So a structured framework of action is needed in which the integration of innovation and development contributes to planning and mitigating the consequences. The use of technology in the service of crisis as well as resilient management really represents one of the critical tools for operationalizing the resilience concept. Also applying technology through an adequate management model, which is aimed at developing the ability and capacity of faster modification in responding to crisis, is a really indisputable element of strengthening resilience or port resilience. Now I leave the words to Professor Mudrić, who will present the possibilities of implementing resilience, specifically using real-time video surveillance with algorithmic data processing and automated decision making, and also possible recommendations.
Thank you. So I'll be focusing on this last example, and I'll be very brief. I'll just give you a few examples of how this is done in practice nowadays. I've been participating in one Horizon project where the project was aimed at developing a set of digital tools that will enhance the security of public spaces. And these tools can be utilized in urban settings, but also port settings. So through utilizing examples from this project, I will show to what extent this operationalization of resilience concept can be utilized in the port area concerning the capacity of the port is just discussed. But briefly, just before going into details, we have to consider the wider implications of such a technology. And as was Elena made a wonderful presentation of the core elements of the upcoming EU AI Act. And one of the things that this AI Act is very concerned of is the use of the real-time biometrics identification technology and the capacity of not just the governments or certain entities within the government, such as Ministry of Interior, to monitor or track the movements of people and other data. There is an enhanced capacity of companies to do the same and really to utilize the data available through different kinds of services which collect digital information on us as citizens to make digital profiles of who we are, what we do, what we like, with whom we correspond, etc., etc. So that's one of the things that have to be kept in mind when considering this sort of technology and the impact of this technology, especially when we talk about video surveillance and when this footage is available to those companies and entities that have the biometric identification capacity. But to skip this part and to continue onwards, this was the name of the tool of the project. It was called Impetus. As I've said, the focus of the project was to combat or tackle terrorist attacks or crime in public spaces. But the outcome of the project was the realization that tools utilized for the prevention of such occurrences or mitigating such occurrences can be used to other things as well, not just in terms of preventing physical violence, but also preventing other occurrences that could negatively impact the safety of the citizens in a certain area. One good example is the prevention of chemical, biological. In this Horizon Project's context, this was an attack. But in other sense, this could be a detection system that would monitor the air quality, for example, in the port area, and then warn the port authorities, the terminal operators, when there is a possible leak of a chemical or other kind of asset coming in from the ships or other equipment within the port, thus enhancing the resilience of the port, the capacity of the port to warn the personnel and to make the appropriate moves. This tool is perhaps one of the more interesting ones, especially when we consider the fact that the ports are situated on the maritime domains. And what we would expect from your normal port operator, especially marina operator, is to open the area for the citizens to be able to use the area for strolling, going into bars and restaurants, going into shops located within the port authority. And the problem with this is, on one side, the security of the vessels and the equipment based on ports. A few years back, I've talked about this subject within the Delicroma project. Adriana is present here with us, who was the head of the particular project. That was the security issue. But here, we can see that this technology can be used for other purposes as well. Now, this is a projection of the main square in the city of Padova, where they've calculated the approximate number of people that can be present on that square during a public event, such as a concert or some sort of a public presentation, or anything that would amass a lot of people on the main square. And this algorithm here is concerned, or rather trying to imagine a situation where there is an outbreak of violence, a fire, a detonation of a bomb, or a different kind of device, and a mass panic that ensues following this. And the algorithm is trying to determine whether the exit points available in the square are sufficient to allow these people to leave the area in at least amount of time that is possible. The same kind of technology, the same kind of projections, simulations could be used in the port area as well, especially concerning the part of the port that is available to the public. So in a way, this sort of a tool would enable the port authority to plan together with the city and everybody else who is involved, like different governmental entities and institutions that are involved in providing public security, different kinds of departments, to plan ahead different sorts of activities and negative things that could occur during the operational hours of the port, and make sure that they are prepared to undergo or do the necessary activities that are necessary to be able to combat any negative outcomes of such an occurrence. Another important thing that we have to consider is the capacity of the first respondents and then other associated entities to be able to understand what is happening in a certain area, especially when alarms start to go out, and whether they're capable of addressing the vast amount of data that is coming in, and to be able to recognize what the occurrence is and how the occurrence needs to be tackled with the available resources. And one of the things that this impetus project was concerned about was the capacity of the human operators to respond to the triggers and proposals of decisions arriving from the algorithm, therefore the artificial intelligence system, and how the human operators are able to understand what the algorithm is saying, what the threat is, and how best to combat this threat. So if we have some sort of a video surveillance system within a marina, we have to be able to understand whether the people who are behind the monitors are capable of understanding what this video footage is telling them. And if the video system has some sort of an algorithm tool integrated into this real-time footage, whether the people who are responsible for making the reactions are prepared to understand all the information that is coming in. Just recently, Republic of Croatia has opened up a very sophisticated high-tech center for emergency, combating emergency situations. Currently, we use it to tackle fires, wildlife fires, and etc. And you have a number of personnel there who are trained to be able to understand what is the information that is coming in and how to best use the available resources. And then finally, what is the when we talk about algorithm systems and their capacity to make the automated decision making, one very simple example of automated decision making is the capacity of the system when the system believes the alarm should be triggered in a red flag scenario to automatically alarm not just the personnel in the video control center security hub that are looking at the video footage, but also fire department, police department, medical department, etc., etc. So therefore, to make sure that everybody who is supposed to be informed at that particular time is informed immediately, and allow everybody to have access to the situational awareness information that is the live footage and all the other information that can be assessed on the spot, and therefore to be able to, for everybody on the respondent side to be well informed and have all the necessary details in front of them and able to use this information. I thank you for the attention on our side, and we are looking forward to any potential discussion on the topic. Thank you.